Hi everyone, this is a video lecture that will address the IEP Critique 3 assignment for EDSE 512. So you recall we've done some other critique work before. This is a situation in which you will be provided with an IEP document for Andrew Smith, and then you'll be provided with a form, and you'll recognize this from work we've done before, where we're looking at each of these qualities that we need to see in an IEP. And this would be a review document through the Colorado Department of Education. And then we'll have the opportunity to click yes or no, or whether this is not applicable for the IEP document provided to us, and to give notes in this far right-hand column regarding why we made the decision of yes, no, or NA. So the areas that we will be looking at in this critique will be goals and objectives, the service delivery statement, the least restrictive environment, and prior written notice. And I just want to go through the document so that you can see the exact sections that we'll be looking at. So we'll start out with goals and objectives. And remember, we have already gone through all this. Don't need to look at the special factors for this. Moving down to section 9, that would be the annual goals or objectives section. So you'll see that there is a goal written here for math for the student, and then there are several different areas that may or may not be filled out. That's a little hint for you. We got the baseline data point here, for instance, and the evaluation method checked off for us. And the goal is here for Andrew's reading. Again, I didn't say this was a good goal. That's why we're doing a critique, okay? But this is the goal and objective section. And here we'll see a math goal as well. So we have 3 goals that we can observe. And bringing us back to the document, we'll be going through these first columns, talking about whether each of these things is occurring in the goals that you're reviewing, and if so, how or why, or if not, why not. So remember, detail in this notes column on the far right is quite valuable as you review this document. It's really nice to reflect on what you're seeing and whether the goals are appropriate or not, what strengths and what areas for improvement they might have. We'll then be moving down to the service delivery statement, and that's the second bullet point here for the critique. So when we're going into the IEP document, we'll scroll down past extended school year, past the standardized testing section, and then we'll hit the service delivery statement. And the service delivery statement, section 13 of this document, will first occur with a written blurb, and this is something where we need to be saying what services the student will receive and from whom, whether they'll be inside or outside the general education classroom, and how many minutes or hours per week or per month will be provided, or in some cases per day, to the student. And that will be put into narrative format. We do want to connect that to goals as well. So what will the student be working on with that provider? And then the grid down below should show us what this will look like broken down with these numbers and with these boxes filled out, and it should match the service delivery statement up here. So what type of specialized instruction or what type of related service is being delivered to the student, who is doing it, and that would be a provider, special education teacher, speech language pathologist, for instance, and then what is the frequency? So how many minutes or hours per day, per week, per month? Okay, so one of those would be included. And that could be direct or indirect, by the way. So indirect services would include the consultation components, whereas direct services would be working really with that student. Oftentimes that might be one-on-one, or it could be in a push-in service within that general education classroom, but still with close focus on the student, working with the student rather than in consultation with other adults and kind of in that indirect, removed position. So we do want to specify whether this service that we're listing in the service delivery statement is direct or indirect. Moving on to section least restrictive environment 14. This is the place where we're choosing whether the child will be in general education at least 80% of the time, 40 to 79% of the time, or less than 40% of the time. So often for students who are in general education less than 40% of the time, This could be in a separate school setting, perhaps, or if a student is really quite self-contained within a center-based program, but even that would be more uncommon. If we're in a neighborhood school in a center-based program, we're going to typically see 40 to 79% or even 80% or above of our time in general education. We'll need to check whether that option was selected or not, so one of those will be chosen and the others will be rejected. And then in the far right column, we need to talk about the discussion that occurred for advantages and disadvantages of that placement and what we might do to address and reduce the potential disadvantages. So all of those things must be addressed in the IEP document and in the critique. Going to be talking about whether those things are happening or not. So moving down from the service delivery statement here into least restrictive environment, you'll need to go through each of these and check yes or no about whether this is happening in Andrew's IEP provided to us, section 14. And finally, we're moving down to the prior written notice section. That is our fourth bullet point here. Prior written notice for Andrew's IEP can be found below the least restrictive environment here at the end of the document. So the PWM will always need to address information regarding other options considered and why those options were rejected. So we'll need to see detail in there, and other factors. We'll also need information there. Don't just put not applicable for other factors considered. There's always something to take into consideration when we're working with a student. Students and their families can be very complex. There are a lot of variables and preferences, interests, likes or dislikes, or desires related to the school setting that could be discussed. And other factors can be anything that relates to the child's performance and to the decisions made in that IEP document. So really break it down, be analytical as you're approaching this, and don't ever just say no other factors were considered. There's always something that was taken into consideration, even if it was more informally discussed in that IEP meeting. So for prior written notice, same thing, we'll go through and indicate whether evidence for each of these was provided, yes or no, and then we'll be giving notes on that. And that's the end of the Critique 3 document. So what you'll be submitting is the organizer document that we just looked at, and the cells will expand as you go, so you can include as much information as needed. All you'll need to do is go through Andrew's IEP document, compare it to the critique form, and add your yes or no along with your notes regarding any errors that you identify. And as a hint for you, there will be many errors. So rubric down below, you'll just see you need to provide clear answers to the questions, address all sections, and we just want to show that careful comparison, that analysis, the IEP compared to that organizer with all of the different areas for examination. And then obviously just professional writing, so keep an eye on grammar, mechanics, etc. Looking forward to reviewing your critique assignments. You can also watch the video lecture for this module for more information regarding these IEP sections, as well as accommodations and modifications. Have a great week.